Pottery Barn charges up to $149 for this candle holder. Williams-Sonoma sells 4 tiny dishes for nearly $70, and designer artwork can cost even more. But every project I'm making today starts at the Dollar Tree, and my goal is to prove that inexpensive does not have to look cheap. By the end, you may not even be able to tell which pieces are the designer versions and which ones I made just for a few dollars. But before we get started, a big thank you to Better Wild for partnering with me on this episode. So let's get started. For our first project, we are recreating this gorgeous Pottery Barn Hurricane candle holder. What I really loved about the original was its simple shape. It had that beautiful aged gold pedestal and a substantial glass hurricane, and a very classic look that could work in almost any season. And because the design itself was fairly simple, this is a perfect example of just how much proportion and finish influence whether something looks inexpensive or high-end. Now, I originally planned on using this little decorative cake plate that I got at Target Dollar Spot several years ago, because when I first saw it, I'm like, that is the perfect thing. The shape is spot on, it really is. But when I tried to match it up with our base, you can see that the scale was off. The base is too wide, and instead of looking refined, the entire piece started to feel a little clunky. It looks like a vase sitting on a cake plate, if you know what I mean. And this is one of those moments when it's worth stopping and adjusting the plan just a little bit. You can have all the right individual pieces, but if the scale and proportion are wrong, the finished project still may not give you that elevated result you're looking for. So instead, I pulled out a small wood round that I already had in my stash. I believe this particular one originally came from Walmart, super affordable, but Dollar Tree also frequently carries similar unfinished wood pieces in its craft section as well. And whenever I can use something I already have, I absolutely will, because I have way too much stuff. Now, for the pedestal, I am using a small candlestick that I found at Hobby Lobby for around $2. So I applied E6000 around the edge of the candlestick for a strong, lasting hold. And then I added a little hot glue to give me that immediate grip while the E6000 cures. I centered the candlestick underneath the wood round and pressed everything together. Okay, now you're gonna wanna make sure to check from several angles before the glue sets, because even a little slight offset will be noticeable once the hurricane is assembled. Now, I painted the entire pedestal with a black chalk paint. And those of you who've been watching me for a while have seen me do a similar technique in the past. For those of you who haven't, you may be wondering why we're painting it black when the finished piece is going to be gold. Well, the dark foundation is one of the details that keep our gold finish from looking flat or overly bright. We want a little black to remain visible in the recessed areas, so in the final finish feels aged and dimensional, much more like metal and much less like something simply painted gold. Once the black paint was dried, I went over with antique gold rub and buff. My favorite rub and buff color is usually gold leaf, but I was completely out of it, so today we're working with what I had. And the antique gold gave me a really good base, but it was slightly darker and cooler than the warm gold on our inspiration piece. So to bring in more warmth, I pulled out my Folk Art gold paint and stippled it lightly over the rub and buff. Rather than brushing it all on smooth, solid layer, I'm tapping the paint over the surface and allowing some of the darker color underneath to remain visible. That stippling does two things. It warms up the gold, and it also adds subtle texture that helps mimic the look of the aged metal. And I'm especially being careful not to cover every little bit of black. That contrast is what creates the depth. High-end finishes are rarely completely flat color. They usually have a little variation, age, imperfection, and those are often the details that make them feel authentic. So once everything was dry, all I needed to do was place the Dollar Tree glass cylinder base on our pedestal and add a pillar candle, and that is it. I think this turned out so beautifully. The Pottery Barn version comes in 2 sizes, a 10-inch version and a 15-inch version. Ours finished out at approximately 11.5 inches tall, so it falls just above their smaller size, so that's what we're gonna go with. The 10 9-inch Pottery Barn Hurricane was approximately $80. Our version came in at around $8. That means we created a remarkably similar look for about 10% of the price. And I don't think we've sacrificed the feeling of the original at all. This is what I mean when I say we're not copying the price tag, we're recreating the feeling. This next project may not be a direct copy of the specific designer piece, but lion head planters and classic medallion pots appear throughout traditional and European inspired decor. They have that collected old world quality that makes them feel as though they could have come from a beautiful garden shop or a small antique market. And ours begins with a very humble Dollar Tree starting point. I started with a Dollar Tree pot along with a wood lion head embellishment from Amazon. First, I warmed up this bendable wood embellishment with a hair dryer on the hottest setting to make sure that it would curve around our pot, because it heats up the glue and then you can kind of mold it with your hands. And then I attached our lion head detail using some Gorilla super glue, making sure it was centered on the front of the pot. To give the entire piece a more cohesive aged terracotta appearance, I used some acrylic paint in terracotta and peach tones that I already had on hand, and I kind of mixed them together until I had it as close as I could get to the original, and then I carefully painted it on the lion, avoiding the pot as much as possible. And once that was dry, I also dry brushed around the lion's face so that the details would remain visible and make it look a little bit more aged. A little greenery to it, and just look at how sweet this turned out. It has personality, but because we kept the color palette soft and restrained, it feels timeless and elevated. This is such a good reminder that small architectural detail can completely transform the personality of an otherwise very simple object, like a Dollar Tree terracotta pot. That was like 75 cents, by the way, but I love it. It's so cute. Since today is all about looking beyond the starting point and helping something become the best version of itself, I also want to make sure the ones we love are feeling their best too, and that includes this sweet girl. Yes, I love you. Yes, I do. Especially this time of year, Dolly can get really itchy, and if you've ever had a dog that deals with allergies or irritation, you know how hard it is to watch. They're scratching and they can't fully relax, and they just want to do something that makes them feel a little bit more comfortable. And that's why I kept Better Wild a part of her routine. Look, she's so excited for it, she can hardly stand it. All right, we're gonna put her out of her misery. She really wants it. Oh, good girl. Dogs and babies are the only things that are cute, actually, when they eat with their mouth open. Baby girl. All right, you're welcome. Okay, go play. It's just been such an easy thing for me to stay consistent with. I really feel like it has helped to support her. I just added it to her routine, and I love that it doesn't feel complicated. When something is easy to keep up with, I'm so much more likely to actually stay consistent. And this is what I want for her, is just being comfortable, relaxed, and back to herself. I'll have all of the Better Wild information linked below for you guys, but if your dog struggles with seasonal allergies, itching, or irritation, Better Wild is such a simple way to support them and help them feel better in their own skin. I really do recommend checking it out. They also have a whole bunch of other supplements as well. It has made such a huge difference for Dolly, and I'm just so grateful to see her comfortable and happy. Okay, so now that we've taken care of our sweet girl, let's get back to the Dollar Tree transformations, because this next project takes two very simple little trays and gives them a timeless blue and white look you would expect to find at Williams-Sonoma. Blue and white chinoiserie decor is incredibly popular right now, but it's also one of those styles that never really disappears. It feels timeless, collected, and traditional, which is why you see it at places like Williams-Sonoma and in so many beautifully layered designer rooms. The challenge is that even the smallest blue and white accessory can be surprisingly expensive. Williams-Sonoma was selling a set of 4 small dishes for approximately $70, and I found a similar handmade ring dish on Etsy that was on sale for around $22. But I found these unfinished little trays in the craft section at a Dollar Tree, and I knew we could recreate that same feeling for far less. You may find slightly different shapes at different Dollar Tree locations, but what you're looking for is a small unfinished tray with a relatively smooth surface, so it doesn't necessarily need to be this one exactly. These ones particularly have a very dry, porous finish, almost like an unfinished terracotta pot, so they are going to absorb quite a bit of our adhesive at first. As for the pattern, I'm using 2 different decorative napkins. One came from Amazon and is left over from a previous project, project. You remember that one? Another dupe, I think it was from Pottery Barn as well. The floral pattern I'm using on the square tray came from Hobby Lobby. Decorative napkins are such an affordable material because you only need a single printed layer, and for a project this small, one napkin gives you more than enough material. I began by applying a generous layer of matte Mod Podge to each tray, but because these trays are so porous, they soak up very quickly. You may find that it helps to apply one coat, allow it to absorb slightly, and then add a second coat so that you can have enough product on the surface to hold the napkins securely. Next, I carefully separated all the plain backing layers from the napkin. Most decorative napkins have 2 or 3 layers like one of mine, but we only want the very top printed layer. This piece is going to be extremely thin and delicate, so handle it gently. I positioned the pattern where I wanted it over the tray, and I lowered it carefully onto the Mod Podge. Now, rather than wiping across with my fingers, I gently tapped it into place. Because if you rub too aggressively, the wet napkin can tear very easily. Tapping allows it to press it into the curves and the corners without putting as much pressure on the fibers. Now, you can trim away some of the excess of the larger pieces napkin at this stage, but you don't need to cut it away perfectly. Or you don't even actually really need to do this if you don't want to, because we will clean up all these edges after it dries. To speed up the drying process, I used a hot hair dryer. The warm air also helped the napkin to settle down into the shape of the tray, almost like a shrink wrap. As it dried, I continued tapping down on any raised areas or small air pockets. Just be careful not to hold the hair dryer too close or use too much force so that that napkin lifts, especially with some of the new hair dryers that have like so much like force with them. Just keep that in mind. Once the napkin was completely dry, and I do mean completely dry, I used a piece of fine grit sandpaper to gently remove the excess around the edges. I'm sanding in a downward motion rather than pulling outward. This gives us a cleaner edge and helps prevent the napkin from lifting away from the tray. And then once we're done sanding it away, just for good measure, I just ran my finger around the lip of the tray to make sure that everything was kind of pressed down and nice and smooth. Then I sealed the top with another coat of matte Mod Podge. Now, you could absolutely stop right here. Even at this point, the pattern has completely transformed this little Dollar Tree tray, but I wanted to add a few more details to make them feel even more like the designer versions. Using a gold paint pen, I traced around the outer edge of each dish. This very small addition makes such a difference. That thin metallic border frames the pattern and immediately gives a piece a more finished jewelry-like appearance. For the final step, I added a coat of triple thick glaze. That stuff is thick. I used this product on another project and I love the way it created a thicker, almost ceramic looking finish. You could also use a clear polyurethane or epoxy resin depending on the finish and the durability you want. I already had the triple thick on hand and it was quick and easy to use. It does take a little bit to dry though. Now, because all the products I used are not being presented as food safe, I'm treating this as more of a decorative trinket tray rather than a serving piece, just so you know. I'm sure you all knew that. They would be so pretty for rings, earrings, keys, or simply layered into a stylish vignette. And I absolutely love how they turned out. The designer examples average close to $20 per small dish, including the tray, the napkin finishes, and the small amount of products that I did use. I estimate that each of ours will cost around $2. Once again, that is approximately 10% of the designer price, but I don't think we sacrificed anything in the way of style. They have the pattern, the shine, the delicate gold edge, and timeless blue and white character that makes chinoiserie feel so special. Now, if you also believe your home can look expensive without requiring a financial intervention, make sure you're subscribed to Design to the Nines and give this video a thumbs up so that I know you want me to make more designer-inspired Dollar Tree makeovers. We still have 3 art projects to go, including 2 substantial pieces made from the exact same $5 chalkboard, and one of those is inspired by Ballard design piece that sells for hundreds and hundreds of dollars. And I think this may be our best "you made that for what?" moment of the day. So our next project began with something I wasn't even looking for in the art section. I found this beautiful bird and branch placemat at the Dollar Tree for approximately $1.25. And although we are about to turn it into artwork, it was already a very good value as a placemat. I found this fabric placemat set featuring this same exact design for approximately $37 for 4. Now the Dollar Tree version is not fabric. It has a wipeable plastic finish surface, but visually it gives you almost the same exact botanical pattern. That wipeable finish would actually make it very practical if you want to use it on a table. But the moment I saw it, I thought it looked like artwork. Then later I found this same image being sold as a canvas wall art. A similar sized version was on sale for around $30 with a regular price tag to closer to $50. So instead of paying for the canvas, I decided to frame our $1.25 mat. So we're gonna use a Dollar Tree frame, but the original wood tone felt slightly too light and cool beside the branches in the artwork. It wasn't a dramatic problem, but those small color differences really matter when you're trying to make a project feel very cohesive. So, by the way, this frame is plastic, and what we're gonna do next may seem weird, but it's gonna work. I used a little antique glaze over the frame to deepen and warm the wood. This helped connect the frame to the brown branches in the image, and it gave the entire piece a more collected traditional appearance. Next, I took the backing that we had already removed and used the glass as my cutting template. I placed it over the section of the placemat that I wanted to feature, traced around it, and cut the placemat down to size. Be sure to take a moment to choose your composition before cutting, because you want the bird at the branches to feel intentionally positioned within the frame rather than accidentally cropped. When I reassembled the frame, I placed the placemat on top of the glass rather than behind the glass. The placemat is already wipeable, so it doesn't need the protection of the glass, and putting it in the front eliminates that glare that would make it harder to see the artwork. So I did leave the glass inside the frame behind the placemat though, so I can easily reuse the frame for something else later, and the glass is safe. Then I secured the backing and the project was complete. This was super easy. Can I say, wasn't this so easy? It may be one of the simplest transformations in the entire episode. Now our version cost about $2.50 depending on what frame you use. The similar unframed canvas was on sale for around $30. So ours comes in again at a little less than 10% of the sale price, and we also have the warmth and finished appearance of a frame. What I especially love is that it doesn't feel like novelty art. The soft greenery, botanical subject, and natural wood frame give you that timeless quality that we are looking for. And the fact that it began as a Dollar Tree placemat becomes part of the fun, not something the finished project needs to apologize for, because this is beautiful. Now we're moving into what may be the biggest transformation of the episode, yet still so easy. And for these final 2 projects, I'm going to be using the exact same Dollar Tree chalkboard for 2 different looks. I found these larger chalkboards at Dollar Tree a few months ago for approximately $5 each. They still may have them available in some stores, but remember, Dollar Tree inventory can vary quite a bit by location. Even if you cannot find this exact chalkboard, the same idea can work with an inexpensive frame sign, thrifted artwork, or a frame that you already own. So for our first version, I wanted to recreate the feeling of this beautiful, colorful, impressionist landscape from Ballard Designs. The smallest option that I found for the Ballard Designs artwork was approximately 24 by 32 inches. Now our finished piece is going to be slightly smaller at around 18 by 24 inches, so it is important to acknowledge that this is not a perfect size for size comparison, but the Ballard Design piece was on sale for $525, and that was on sale. The regular price was $699. And ours is still gonna be a very substantial designer art comparison. So I created my own designer inspired landscape as a part of my digital art collection, and it gives that same warm woodland feel. This print and many of the other images that you'll see throughout my home are available through my website as a digital download. I have recently added a large number of new pieces, including timeless landscapes, an expanded fall collection, and plenty of beautiful Christmas artwork as well. Digital artwork is one of my favorite ways to change the look of a room without buying an entirely new piece of framed art every season. You can choose the image, print it to the size you need, and reuse the frames you already own over and over and over again. So for the 2 weeks following this episode, I'm making these featured prints available for $2.99. After that promotional period, it will return to its regular shop pricing. I like to have my larger pieces printed at Walgreens on their adhesive-backed poster paper. It has a smooth, relatively matte surface, and the adhesive backing makes it very easy to apply directly to signs, panels, or existing artwork. And Walgreens frequently offers photo promotions, so I always look for a coupon before ordering. So to lower the printing cost even further, I created a 24 by 36 inch canvas in Canva and placed both of today's artwork pieces on the same sheet, and I just kind of flipped them sideways. That allowed me to order one large poster and cut it into 2 separate prints, and that will save you money. Keep that in mind if you have like multiple prints you want to make, that you can like stack them on one image and it will save on your costs. With the coupon I used, the total came to roughly $25 after tax, or approximately $12 each. Once the poster was printed, I carefully cut the 2 images apart. I positioned the colorful landscape over the chalkboard and checked all 4 sides before removing the backing. This is another point where taking a little extra time makes a huge difference. If the image begins crooked, it becomes harder to correct as more of the adhesive is exposed. I peeled back only a small little strip of paper at the top, and I lined it up really carefully and pressed the exposed adhesive area to the top of the edge of the chalkboard. Then I slowly pulled away the remaining backing while smoothing it out on the surface, working gradually from top to bottom center towards the edges out to press as many air bubbles as possible out. Now, sometimes this process goes out perfectly. Other times you may get a little wrinkle or a little bubble that needs a little extra attention. The adhesive paper does allow for small amount of repositioning at the beginning, but the more slowly you work, the better your result will be. Because this print was slightly larger than the opening, I pressed it firmly into the inside corners of the frame. Then I used a fresh craft blade and I carefully trimmed away the excess. And that's all it took. There was no construction, no complicated frame to build, no expensive custom matting, just the right image and inexpensive existing base and careful application. Our version comes to approximately $5 for the chalkboard, $12 for this portion of the printed poster, and $2.99 for the featured digital download. That brings the project to approximately $20 compared to $525 of the sale price of the Ballard Designs piece. Ours costs less than 4% as much. That's huge savings. But when you compare it to the regular price of approximately $699, ours is under 3% of the cost. Again, it's somewhat smaller than the inspiration piece, but it's still very substantial in size, and it gives us an incredibly similar visual impact for a tiny fraction of the designer price. And this may be my favorite proof that inexpensive does not have to look cheap. The chalkboard did not determine the finished look. The image, scale, palette, frame, and presentation did. But we still have one more version of this exact same chalkboard, and it has a completely different mood. For our final project, I'm using the same $5 Dollar Tree chalkboard, but this time we're giving a quieter, more traditional personality. This woodland image is a soft palette that feels almost like an antique drawing or a vintage European landscape. It isn't a direct copy of one specific designer piece, but this style of a moody landscape artwork does appear frequently at the retailers like Pottery Barn and other high-end home stores. And a larger framed version can easily cost hundreds of dollars. And by the way, I recently had this same image printed out on a large scale canvas for my bedroom, and I also did a fall version from Amazon, and it's so affordable, especially for how big it is. That'll be in a future episode. Because I printed both pieces of artwork on the same 24 by 36 adhesive poster, the process and cost are essentially the same. And I think seeing these 2 pieces together may be the most powerful reveal of the entire episode. They began as the exact same $5 chalkboard, but one became a colorful impressionist landscape and the other one became this quiet, kind of moody woodland scene. And you would never guess that both of these started as a chalkboard. Neither of them was elaborate to build, and they both feel substantial and high-end. Both images, again, are part of my digital art collection, and I have everything linked for you below. You'll also find many new fall images in the shop now, with even more Christmas artwork available for the upcoming season. A digital print is such an affordable way to create variety in your home because one frame can hold an entirely different mood from season to season. When people hear the words Dollar Tree DIY, they may immediately picture something overly crafty, temporary, or inexpensive looking. And I understand why that impression exists. But I hope today's projects prove that the store something came from does not have to determine the way it looks in your home. The Hurricane began with a Dollar Tree glass cylinder, a wood round, and a very inexpensive candlestick. The little planter began with a simple materials and gained its personality through one thoughtful architectural detail. The chinoiserie dishes began as unfinished craft trays. The botanical artwork began as a placemat, and these two substantial pieces of artwork began as $5 chalkboards. The starting price did not determine the finished result. What changed these pieces were the choices made, the proportion, color, texture, finished, artwork, and styling. And that is really what good design is about. A beautiful home is not beautiful because every object in it was super expensive. It was beautiful because the pieces were chosen and arranged with thought, creativity, and intention. Resourcefulness is not the opposite of good taste. In many ways, it is one of the things that makes a home feel personal. We are not copying price tag. We are recreating the feeling and creating a home that reflects who we are in the process. Now, I would love to know which transformation convinced you the most. Would you have guessed that these pieces began at the Dollar Tree? Let me know in the comments below. And one more thank you to Better Wild for partnering with me on today's episode. If you want to improve the health of your little fur baby, I will leave all the information you need linked in the description box below. And if you enjoyed this episode, here's another one that I think you'll like as well. And in the meantime, I just want to remind you that you are powerful. I'll see you next time. Bye.